We've started this Mitra Career Talk series at the beginning of the year, and we are inviting a kind of special guest every month to have a chat, and we try to cover any kind of topic that you are asking us about. And there were so many questions about recruitment, like, do recruiters use automatic screening tools? What's the kind of need of companies right now in Germany? What do they pay attention to when they look at CVs and so on? And that's why I have invited Sandra. So hi, Sandra, really, really glad to have you here today. Yeah, so Sandra is a talent acquisition manager at Scandit. Scandit is a scale-up, if I'm not mistaken, but I think you can tell us a bit more about that. And Sandra is also really experienced, so she does really hands-on recruitment. She's a very experienced HR person, and also, from what I understood, you're a bit of an HR nerd, so really like into trying out different HR tools and so on. And I think you do have a lot of experience, not only with, let's say, scale-ups or startups, but also medium-sized businesses and corporates. So I think we can cover a lot of topics today, and I'm really excited about that. So Sandra, maybe tell us a bit more about you. I've only just, I think, given a really broad overview, so yeah.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Sandra. I am, as you can see, a big startup and scale-up fan. But before that, I worked as a headhunter. And in this time, I did that 8 years, I think. But of course, I'm still 22. So I did that for 8 years. Then I worked with big corporates, but also mid-sized companies. And I think especially in Germany, the mid-sized companies are very famous, especially for engineering. So there's lots to tell about this. And well, then after this time, I found my passion in startups and scale-ups, which is also a very, very big scene in Germany, very comparable to maybe Israel or the States, also India, where there are big industry about that, many founders. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more. And plus, on top of that, I have my own HR blog. So I'm reporting a lot about what cool new tools are there in HR, what is new work, what is changing in this exciting times now with digitalization, but also, yes, with the pandemic changing a lot in our work and the rest of our life, right? So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
And I think everything you have told us so far sounds really interesting. And that's why I was really excited to have you join in today, because I think this will be very helpful for international applicants, no matter where you are from, because you're not just screening candidates or sourcing candidates, but really up to date in terms of different industries and so on. I'll also share your blog in the chat in a minute for everyone who's interested, if you want to learn more about different HR tools and figure out what Sandra is doing. Yeah, you already just shared it, so perfect. Yay.
Teamwork.
That's really good. So what we will do today is we will have a bit, I would say, people I think call that like an interview or a fireside chat. So we have a long list of questions prepared that we will just discuss. So I'll ask Sandra a lot of questions, which I kind of picked out and documented from our last events, because there were a lot of recruitment related questions. So I just picked out the most, let's say, popular ones. But as I said, you are warmly invited to ask questions in the chat at any point of time. The basic, let's say, topics we will cover are, of course, first of all, a bit about the demand right now. I think a lot of you are also wondering about the whole Corona pandemic and how it has affected the work life over here and so on. So that's something we will discuss a bit, and then we'll move on to the whole, let's say, application and recruitment process. So I think there, Sandra will also tell us a bit like what kind of tools she uses and what her basic approach is. And that will be very, I think, insightful for you if you want to optimize your application or the way you market yourself as a candidate. And then the last aspect we would like to cover is, I think, kind of based on that. So everything about how you can improve as a candidate, or what you can do to, maybe also make the life of recruiters and HR persons like Sandra a bit easier. Just one last thing, I think some persons are experiencing audio issues. So maybe sometimes it helps to just log out and log in again. We are like, the event is open now. You can log in at any point of time. And then also try to connect your audio. Sometimes that's what's missing. So there are like 3 dots on the lower part. If you are having issues, it's, I don't know. But then you are maybe also not hearing my explanation. But yeah, we can give some instructions in the chat. But yeah, let's get started. Sandra, my first question to you would be, so what is the situation like right now? Is there actually a demand on the market, or are they just like masses of candidates, but no real job openings? So what's your experience?
Well, I guess we have something what we call the scissor in Germany. So it's really going apart. We have some industries in Germany that are really suffering, like hospitality, some other hospitality, travel, the usual cases, I would say. But then again, as we are a country of engineering, technology, I think COVID did not hit Germany as hard as it did hit maybe other countries. So the good thing is that Germany so far has been, in many cases, especially with the mid-sized companies, a very conservative company. And now it becomes very obvious that German companies have to digitalize, they have to automate processes, and really have to innovate. And also in this time, they found the budget and also the need to innovate and to keep on track of the market. So this means we have now a huge need for people working in SaaS, software as a service, anything that is related to that, everything that is a specialized position. If you hold a specialized position, that becomes much more relevant. And there are so many trends right now in the market that each specialization that we have follows certain trends. So for example, if you're a marketing manager, right now we can see that people are having a lot of need for ABM marketing managers, for example. This is a trend where people target very specialized accounts, big accounts, for example. And I think in every certain profession, you can find this specialization. I think in general, Germany is moving a bit away from the conservatism. And what I can definitely see is that German companies are now much more open to international candidates. Because of the specialization issue, we need to broaden our scope. We have to find candidates somewhere else in the world, but then also the HR departments become much more skilled in how do I handle international candidates. And also the pattern of recruiting changes a lot. So back in the times, I call it, you would rely a lot on job ads and looking at the people who apply to your company. And now HR departments hire specialized sourcers and recruiters who actively do their own outreach. So sometimes in the past, people would work with headhunters then in that cases, but usually only for leadership positions. And now it is actually for the whole scope of position one company has, usually from the smallest salesperson actually to the biggest CEO. You recruit yourself, find the best people on LinkedIn or even on Xing, which is like the German LinkedIn. Yeah, those are some trends, but just want to stop here.
No, I think that was very insightful already. So just to dive into that a bit more. So I think what you are saying about the specialization is really, really interesting, because this also means for international candidates that they really have to be very precise about what kind of added value they bring, or what kind of niche or specialization they are targeting or they are really good at, right? To have a chance on the market. And one person here was commenting that this need is actually only there for maybe IT and engineering roles. So what's your take on that? Would you say that, yeah, that's the case, or is it also the case for other roles? Like you mentioned marketing already. What do you think?
No, I think actually it really depends a bit. What have you done in marketing? Have you already worked for a tech company? Who are you approaching? And does your skill come across in your CV really? So one thing is to apply at a company, and then one thing is to be found, by a company. So I think to be found is way better for you as a candidate. So you might actually want to pimp your LinkedIn profile. I think Jana is also doing personal coaching on this. So this is a good opportunity. On the other hand, there are certain trends that people are following right now, especially, for example, as I mentioned, in marketing, the ABM topic in SaaS. This is a very big issue, but you also want to make sure this comes across the right way in your CV, and you're mentioning the right keywords. And keywords is the next big thing in HR. You really want to be mindful of that. And we can talk about this later on a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So just to also add that here, we hosted a session on LinkedIn profiles, like a 1-hour session with Pia. Pia is a former colleague, and she actually also referred Sandra to me. So she's like I think she was like one of the first guests on our Career Talk series, and the session was very insightful. So thanks to Pia for connecting us as well. So if you're interested in that, you could also take a look at that on our YouTube channel, and I'll share the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. Just one more question here, and then I think we can probably move on to the whole aspect of what the processes look like and what kind of tools you're using. You already mentioned keywords. If we're looking at the Corona pandemic, what do you think? What is it like for international candidates right now in terms of their, let's say, location? Like a lot of candidates have worries about the fact that they are probably based outside of Germany and that their chances are even less right now with the pandemic. So do you think companies are kind of less open to that right now? Has that changed during the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it really depends on the company, how far along they are with their own structure. If there is somebody who knows how to bring people from abroad to Germany, and how open they are in general to hire people from outside of Germany, of course. Visa processes and stuff like this is very complicated at the moment. So what people are currently considering is hire now, letting those people work remotely, and then moving them to Germany later on. So this is actually something I've seen lately very much. And yeah, that is something that's very common right now.
Yeah, okay, so that's also a kind of opportunity, right, for people. But from what I understood, like the whole specialization aspect is probably very relevant, right? So if you don't have a specialization that's in really high demand right now, it's probably more difficult if you're based outside of Germany because you're competing.
Yeah, I mean, now that we all experience remote as an option, I think it really is a good chance, because then everything has to be done remote, even if you don't want are traditionally remote. You can hire somebody remotely and transfer then later on. And this is actually a very good point, because in the past, people would have to transfer you, go through the visa process, and not even know, is this the right person for me? So in Germany, traditionally, the first 6 months are the probation period. And within this time, Germans take it very seriously. Are you the right one for us? And vice versa, of course. But people in Germany are very cautious. They want to make sure this is a good fit, and are a little bit skeptic always. But if you prove yourself in the first, let's say, 3 to 6 months, then the whole visa thing shouldn't be much of a problem later on, right?
Yeah, okay, understood. Yeah, that's I think a very good opportunity for persons, but still we have a lot of people, like one person saying, so I feel like some recruiters see an international address and they don't really consider an application right away. So would you say that that's the case, if you want to comment on that?
Well, yeah, I think in that terms, Germany is very conservative. Unfortunately, it's still so. It's changing, but I can give you heads up. It really depends what sort of company you're looking for. So I would actually advise you have a look at the size of the company. And I think it makes sense for international candidates to especially have a look at really big corporates, because they're used to international processes. They're having international subsidiaries in other countries. And it's not so scary for an HR person to handle all of this. Whereas if you have a mid-sized company, you maybe have HR people sitting in there who don't really have maybe a lot of experience with international candidates, and then they shy away from it, from the whole process. They would have to, dig deep into this, take a risk. They just don't have the knowledge, what they have to take care of. They would have to invest money into a relocation company if they don't know it. So there's a lot of obstacles there. Plus, the mid-sized companies are usually extremely conservative, like very, very, very traditional. And to be honest, the HR person in a mid-sized company does not have a lot of power or say in the whole process, whereas in the big companies, HR people do make decisions and do push processes forward. Also, another thing is you might want to look at startups who are traditionally very much connected internationally, very open, and they all have this can-do attitude, especially in the IT sector, where it's very common to just really, figure things out and it works then there. So, so if you're really looking for a job there, if this is something for you, you could network a lot within this whole community of startups or scale up. That would really make sense.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So to sum that up, my understanding would be it really depends on what kind of companies you are targeting, right? So if you are not based in Germany, it's really important to focus on companies or company size where you can expect the company to probably be a bit more open towards that, right? If I got that right. Yeah. And do you think, and then we'll move on, do you think, is there anything the candidate can do apart from targeting a certain size of companies or like startups, like in Berlin? I mean, I see so many like international companies, they are so used to relocation. But is there anything the candidates can do?
What do you mean now exactly? In having a look at the certain companies, or just you know.
I mean, in their profile, like for instance, there are people who have like done the recognition of their certificates, but that also doesn't help them if the company is not familiar with visa processes. So is there, or one person was suggesting, so how about if I offer to take care of the relocation, would that help in the screening process?
Yes. So I think some people already have the eligibility to work somewhere. They should put that definitely into their profile. And also what their visa status is. Do they have everything together? Then there's also the opportunity in your LinkedIn profile to state where you want to work. Definitely put that in, because besides of your current location, recruiters can also look for potential locations where somebody is willing to move to, which really helps. And what else? And then it really helps to state what are you looking for. So really tailor your profile to the thing you're looking for. So first of all, network, join groups, publish articles, and the more specialized you come across, the better. That's really the point. So network with the right people, connect with them, and don't do it like many people approach me. I'm looking for a job in Germany. Can you please help? I get maybe 20 of those in a week. I can't do this because right now I'm super busy and I can't even unfortunately reply to messages because I get so many messages. It would take me, unfortunately, maybe 5 hours a week, and that's like a lot, you know. So what I would rather do is like, first of all, connect with them, say, I'm happy to connect. I see you're specialized in this. This is also my specialization, or your company is specialized in this. I'm an expert in this and that. Happy to exchange thoughts at some point, or just happy to connect and keep each other on the radar. That really helps. And then slowly build a relationship. It's not like boom, you know, and then hit them in the face with what you want, because what you want is not necessarily what they want or what they need. So always, you know, try to build a real, true connection. It's as if you had an Instagram account with 10,000 followers, but you all bought your followers and nobody's really interested in your topic, you know? So that's maybe the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good, very, very good image to like picture, because I think here in Germany, it's also always about kind of added value, right? So it works much better if you're networking and bringing added value to people through your technical knowledge, rather than reaching out and saying, I want a job. And then you leave all the work to the person.
Mindful, they're very personal. What do you want from me? Germans always ask themselves, what do you want from me? Like, you know, do you want to sell me something, you know? And it's good to showcase them. No, I just want to connect with you. And then maybe you even have a question about a certain project that your company is doing, or maybe the connection you're requesting has just published a post or an article, and you're like, wow, this is really interesting. What do you mean by this or that? And just really genuinely be interested in what them do. So don't spread and pray and spread, you know. This does not work in Germany very much. Germans like to have a very personal conversation, very polite. I think Germany is still a bit of a hierarchical country. So approach them very respectfully, and just add value, as Jana said.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. And it's, I mean, this is also like something I didn't really consider before our session, but this is really, really also just a bit about cultural differences, right? So that helps to have some understanding of like basic values or behavior within different cultures. That's something we always come across, no matter where you are applying, right? It's the same if you're applying in another country. That's just intercultural differences. Yeah, so I do see so many questions on the chat. I'm looking at them, so no worries. But I'm just picking them out like one by one, depending on what kind of topic we are looking at right now. So no worries, just stay with us and we'll cover or try to at least cover a lot of them. Right now, I would really love to move on and take a closer look at the whole application process. So Sandra, can you like give me like a, let's say, a brief overview? So what does the process really like usually look like? Maybe in your daily work, I know this really varies, but yeah, what do we need to know?
I think it's very good to get an understanding what's happening behind the scenes, because it really varies a lot depending on what sort of company you're applying to. So first of all, if you are applying to, let's say, a big corporate, it's not even a recruiter who has the first look at your CV. So the first look is done by an ATS system, by a parsing tool. And this is something that actually just very automatically screens your CV, your cover letter, whatever you sent in, and screens for the right keywords. And then it selects the good ones or the bad ones, as you might call it, and then leads them through to the recruiter. And then there is a whole, a very dedicated, very, let's say big process behind it. So you have a recruiter, you have a sourcer who screen the profile, who might even ask some what we call killer questions. If we haven't found it in your CV yet, any relevant skill, we might ask you, do you also have this or that knowledge? So it's basically another filter. And then the recruiter will invite you to a first interview. And after this, they consult with the hiring manager. The hiring manager decides who to talk to next, and then it goes on. So it can be several interviews. It's a very structured process in regularly. And this has some good time, well, some, what do you call it? Vorteile? Advantages, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So this has some advantages at one point, but it can be very formal, like not like if you're here or there, it doesn't matter, you have to be in this lane. Everything else is not looked at because they also get a very high amount of applicants. And so this is something you might want to consider. So be very, very tailored to just what you're applying to. If you want to apply to any other position within this company, you can do this as well because they won't cross-reference within the company usually.
Because that's also a question we get so often. So yeah.
Yeah, so this won't be done in a very big company usually. Because it just filters for this specific position. If you have smaller companies and smaller HR departments, maybe there's one person who's like, oh, this is not for my position, but my colleague just doing this position, and she might want to have a look at this, and then she tags this person, So this is how it works in smaller companies. And in smaller companies also, even the HR department might not even do the first interview because the hiring managers really usually recruit themselves. They're very much involved into the whole process. So you meet your future boss a lot more quicker. The decision process is much faster usually and not as structured. So it might be that first of all, you meet the hiring manager, then the HR manager, and then they think about, is there anything else they need you to know or need you to meet, and then they decide spontaneously, oh yeah, there's person XY, we forgot her. We need to take her into the process. She also needs to make a decision, or it's your future team colleague and they might want to see you as well, or whatever. And also in those mid-sized companies, your future employer always wants you to see the work environment, you know, what it's really like to work with them. Those companies are super proud of where they work. They have a very huge identification with the employer usually. So this is very important to them, that you know the product, that you dive deep into this. And if you look at, for example, startups, you might maybe, and this is very common, just have one interview and get the job. It's very, very quick. Everything is based on scaling, growing, and then just hiring, you know. However, one should also know this is then much more of an let's say American hire and fire culture than maybe than in other companies. So for example, in mid-sized companies, people would expect you to have longer periods of you staying in a company or staying with them. So they really want to know who you are you in love with them? This is super important for mid-sized companies. They traditionally describe themselves as families, you know, and your boss will usually also be sort of like a dad, you know, to be honest, a mentor. They take it very seriously. So the culture within those companies are totally different, and you should really ask yourself, what am I very what do I feel comfortable with? Am I a startup person, or do I want to work for a traditional company which is very safe and stable? But then also you really have to adapt to the German culture and really try hard to customize and acclimatize to the German ways of doing. Lots of German food.
Yeah, that's also something I sometimes or often hear that people struggle with, apparently. But anyways, I think that it's really important to know what you explained. I think there really seems to be a big difference in terms of how recruitment is done and how application processes work depending on the company size and culture, right? I think that's I think really good to know, because this also means that there is no standardized answer to this. So you never know if you can expect one interview or 5. I've also seen startups which had like 5 rounds of interviews because they do such a detailed matchmaking. So
exactly, even the topic networking is handled totally different. Like if you, for example, approach a recruiter on LinkedIn from a big corporate, they will totally usually ignore your request because they're too busy. They get loads of requests. And even if you send them their CV, they're like, oh, now I have to transfer it into my ATS system and standardize it. And then they're like, please directly apply on our website. And that's much more easy for them. However, if you're in a startup background, if you are networking within this whole scene and doing your homework on this, there's like, I would say 60% of people within a startup are hired by friends and word of mouth. So really use this much more, present yourself as a startup guy, then you have really good chances to get hired.
Yeah. Okay, that's motivating, I would say, at least like something, because I can see people here also on the chat who say, I'm so frustrated. I've been applying for jobs, but never worked out. It takes some time. But one more thing I would really like to learn more about. So you mentioned these screening tools which do an automatic screening. So what can, like if I would apply for jobs, what can I do to yeah, make it through the screening? Because that's an automatic screening, right? So no one probably ever looked at my profile. So what can I do? Like,
yeah, I mean, even if I do it manually with my eyes,
yeah.
even I do it with my eyes, right? So first of all, just really try to figure out what are the specific keywords that make me special within my within my role, right? So I think for you in working in your daily job, it's so natural to have those very common used words, and you're not even aware you're using this, you know. For example, for me, it's like parsing tools, ATS, stuff like this.
Yeah.
But usually I don't even think of this as being special, right? So what you could do is several things. Just research, first of all, those keywords. You can do this in a different ways, actually. One simple thing is Wikipedia. Wikipedia really gives you a lot of hints. It's called categories, and it shows you what sort of keywords are out there. And the next thing is, if you just Google, for example, digital marketing, you know, and you want to know like what are the biggest terms, just Google digital marketing glossary. And then for sort of every position you have out there, there pops up all those common words, use those keywords that you might want to, you know, put in, of course, what's relevant and what you have already done, but try to use as many keywords as possible. But the ones that are really, really, let's say the best 10 ones that are most relevant, just highlight them, make them bold, make them optically different in your CV. Because when I do it manually, I just skip through it. To be honest, I take 20 seconds at most and be like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And you don't have much more time doing this, you know? So if you have, with all clicking and stuff, you know, if you have 100 CVs and you spend 1 minute with those CVs on a daily basis, that's 100 minutes, right? And that's already a couple of hours. So you really be like, you know, and try to figure out what's in there. So make it optically very, very, very structured.
Also very
don't put in too much text. And reduce it to the most important things, but the most important things should be backed up with good keywords. And the next thing is then dates, facts, figures, put them in. One example is if we're looking for a manager, right? And somebody's like, oh, I'm a manager. I'm like, yeah, that's great, you know. But we have this issue at our company. We have a team which is not performing well. The old manager left them demotivated as fuck, you know, and they're really, you know. So what we're now looking for is not somebody who's like good as a manager to build teams, but to recover teams, you know. So if you put some stuff like in there, like I have management experience for so and so many years, I led so many people, the fluctuation within my team was that high, so many people got promoted, the performance of my people was raised by X%. So that very really helps to really get the bigger picture, you know.
So that's very precise. I think that's very helpful to know. By the way, also, if you're struggling with your application, we are doing a great career workshop where we help with exactly that. Just like a short, quick marketing interval here. So do check out our website.
Very, very specific about things. You can imagine it like this. Also with the use of adjectives, it's the same thing, right? In your cover letter, everyone's like, I'm I'm team oriented, I'm hardworking, I'm whatever, right? If you should think of recruiting like dating somebody, right? And what most people do is like being a playboy out there, right? They be like, hey, do you want to go out with me? Hey, do you want to go out with me? And just with the exact same line. And people are like, I'm just one of many. I don't want to date you, you know? So what we want to see is like, hey, I saw that your company just launched a new product. I think it's super exciting, you know? So it's the same as if you're on Tinder, right? I hope you guys know Tinder. You just look at a girl and be like, hey, how are you? And every girl's like, oh, fine, you know? And this is what you want to give as an example, this is what you get as a rejection of a recruiter who's like, fine, you know, you're not it, you know. But then again, if you would talk to this girl and be like, hey, I've seen you have a dog, very cute, what's the name? And ask really very specific questions. So don't send out too many applications. Just pick the ones you're really massively interested in and tailor it to them, you know, make them feel super special. And like, it would be harsh not to talk to you right now as a candidate because you put so much effort in it, you know. And that, I think, is something that you should always be mindful of. Research the company very well, and then truly burn for them, you know, be like very passionate about them. I think, in Germany, we want to feel special.
And I think I think that I really like this comparison to dating, because I think that's very similar. And I think this is a key difference to other markets. Like I've done a lot of recruitment abroad in India, for instance, and I know that in India, for instance, it's very common to, you know, send out a very general application or just your CV, and then you'll be placed somewhere. So and that's really, I think, why sometimes candidates also struggle, because I know it's a lot of effort to research this and to adapt your documents, but that makes all the difference. So it's good to focus on quality and making this person feel special instead of sending out masses of applications.
Like even if you network with people, you applied, let's say you applied already, you can network with people, but you make it sound like, hey, I just applied at your company and this is in process right now, but whatever the outcome, I would like to connect with you because I'm really passionate about the industry, and I know that you're a big player in the market as a company, so I would like to stay on top of your evolvement, and I would love to network and maybe even exchange on the industry we're both working in.
Just a few questions related to this, because I've seen so many comments in the chat, so I'm sorry if we cannot pick up everything. I'm really glad to see this. We have like more than 80 participants, so this is really nice to see. One question was, so and in other countries, like you often don't have, for instance, reference letters and all these, like, you know, attachments that often come with an application. Like these reference letters we have in Germany are something very particular. Is that also part of the automatic screening? So for instance, if I upload my documents and then I don't have reference letters, what can I do? Or is that
that's a very difficult topic, because each company sees it very differently. I think where you don't require any recommendation or anything else like this is startups. They do it usually the American way. They would just ask you, can I get some references from you so I can make a call. This is done there very typically. And with the other ones, I think it just really helps just putting it in at the end of the cover letter saying references upon request, and just stating that well, it's not usual in your culture, country to provide those what we call Zeugnisse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's maybe one point. What you could also do, and I think this is a very good workaround, and you should do this anyways. So there's this option in LinkedIn, and you can ask people to give you recommendations. And you should get as many recommendations as you can, actually. And then you can add them as a screenshot and add them to your cover letter, for example. So just some recommendations I added from my LinkedIn. And people or HR people in Germany will still recognize this as some sort of hint that, okay, somebody would give you a reference and stuff like this, So you should definitely think about it. Also a good tip, if you do it, just don't just ask people, please, can you give me a reference? Tell people, I want to apply for this and this job. I know I need this and this skill for it. And I have this skill, but could you please point this out much more and focus on this in my recommendation? So this comes so across that I'm the super expert at this skill, right? And to make it more easy for your recommendations, it would be also helpful to give you even a pre-made text and say, look, this is how I imagine it looks like, or it can look like. I'm happy if you adapt it or change words and stuff, but just to give you less work, maybe you want to stick to this somehow. This is how I imagine the recommendation.
Yeah.
That's also totally okay,
Okay, but that's, I think, a very good workaround, because I think that's it's also often confusing to people. Like, I've also seen countries where you don't get a reference letter, but just a confirmation saying, okay, this person worked here from this date until this date in this certain role. And I also, like, from my experience, this can sometimes be confusing, because here you issue a confirmation if things went wrong, and then you don't get a proper reference letter.
Yes, and also I see a question from Varys: are LinkedIn recommendations regularly reviewed? Yes, it's getting more and more that we review those recommendations, and also we consider who is giving you the recommendation. So the best thing, of course, is if a boss gives you a recommendation, if we see that, then a coworker, and then also somebody who's worked for you. So that are the hierarchy of people we want to see with you. Also, if you had a client, who worked with you, just include that as well, or ask them if they can talk about your cooperation as well. Everybody who in some sense worked with you works.
Okay, and how about the cover letters? Like I think people are really kind of still sticking with the fact that you have very little time to screen in the beginning. So how important is the cover letter then? Like, do you actually take time to read that? So.
Yeah, well, most cover letters are written like, "Hey, I'm great, hire me."
Yeah.
That's it. So I have to admit, if I don't really know what I have to think of a CV, where I'm like, I'm confused. Like, how does I'm not really consistent, or I'm not really sure. Does she give an explanation, or he? And see in the cover letter, then I look at it. But I honestly have to tell, I'm not looking at every cover letter. I hope I don't get shot now. But it's the hard truth.
Cut this out in our recording.
It's just the harsh truth. So make the CV as clear and concise, and not where you think about like, oh, what happened there, and what is this, and okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
Okay. Also, I think we've already moved a bit on towards like, okay, what can I do as a candidate? And I think this is also really helpful. There are so many questions related to this. One question I also saw was like, how important is the actual education? Like, we do have a lot of people, who change jobs. Maybe you studied something completely different in the beginning. So how important is that? Maybe for automatic screening, but in general.
Well, that is something that is very much changing right now in Germany. I think 10 years ago, that was extremely important. People wanted to see the references from your university or school or whatever, and they really wanted to see the certificate, the proof and stuff. Nowadays, I think it has to do with digitalization, because what you studied is something totally different you're working on right now. So if you studied 10 years ago marketing, there was basically no digital marketing, you know, in that sense, how it's now lived, or SEO, ZR, search engine optimization, stuff like this, you know. So the more important thing is to include all the webinars you have done. And LinkedIn Learning has some great certificates or courses, trainings that you can do, that you can include into your profile. So whenever you have the chance to do one of those things where you can gain a certificate, do it. It really helps. So this is why the original certificates, your university degree, becomes less and less important across all sorts of company types.
Yeah. Okay, that's I think good to know. Another question is, how about gaps in a CV? Like, what do I do, for instance? Like, I don't know, we have people who like had maternal leave or just a gap because. How do you deal with that?
Yes, I think a gap should be mentioned. Germans are very conservative about this. It should be mentioned. Because otherwise people would think of themselves, so what happened there, you know? Even if you just put in, and Germans like this a lot, sabbatical. Can say anything or nothing, but it's just, don't put in unemployment, just don't say it. We don't like it. If you do sabbatical, this has a very positive connotation, something inspirational. Whatever you did for your own mind. Or something maybe good. Maybe put in skills that you learned during this time, but don't put in just plain unemployment.
Okay, so yeah, that I think because that's something, I don't know, which is sometimes difficult to address, right? So people are really worried about that. And also another topic that people have already been discussing a bit on the chat, what about German skills? That's always like a pain point for international applicants.
Job skills? What do you mean?
Skills, like, do you have to speak German to land a job?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good point. And as I said, it really depends on the company. Again, you have probably the best chance in startups, scale-ups, or big companies, either or, because they both have the English corporate culture. So people speak English there. In the mid-sized companies, it's really not so common. Just have a look actually how they present themselves on their website. Do they provide every information on English, or what do they say also in the job ads? But then also, of course, the job ads themselves that they post, is it already in English? And that's a really good hint if that's something important or not, you know?
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good starting point. Then also often, like I often tell people, like if they are frustrated, because, you know, as we already said, it takes some time. Then people sometimes struggle with figuring out what they can improve. And I often suggest to maybe also reach out and ask for feedback, or to try and get an answer. And I know often, you know, people don't have time to answer. But what's your general suggestion? Also, people have been mentioning this kind of ghosting, you know, where you go for an interview or apply and then you never hear back from them. So does that happen? Like,
yeah, it does, but it's nowadays on both sides. It's a cultural phenomenon around the world, I'd say. To be fair, I think for a very dedicated and honest feedback, it's just the time issue. So you should actually consider a professional coaching. For example, Jana does this. but you get so much more tips. For example, on the LinkedIn algorithm, you know, what should you put into your header, you know, about you, you know, even there, the keywords, if you put in there the keywords, you will be easily more or find more easily by the recruiter. And LinkedIn shows your profile way earlier to your recruiter than profiles that maybe don't have that. Also, the title plays a big role when you are shown in a search that a recruiter does. And also, the feedback can be very individual, you know, on your photo. Photo is super important. There's one tool, I put it into the chat. It's called Photo Feeler. And oh no, now I send it to just Mohammed Ali.
Yeah, you can choose to send something to everyone.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay. Well, hello, Mohammed. Sorry. And there you can upload your picture. And you can select the purpose of it, which is then business. And people rate your photo, how competent you are, how much sympathy they have for you, and stuff like this. And you can actually see which of your photos, and just upload many of them, you know, perform the best, you know, and people actually write comments under it, so be prepared. But this is a very good and honest way, because your friends probably won't tell you this is not such a good photo, you know. So this is maybe a good tool for you to see, you know, if you have the right.
Okay, yeah, that's, I think, I never heard of that. So it's called Photo Feeler, and we have it in the chat right now. We already went like 2 to 3 minutes after 3. So, and I mean, in Germany, it's not that common to do like go overtime. But I would like to ask you 2 last questions, if that's okay with you. And just in like, just before that, I know there are also a lot of questions we did not cover so far, but I've already mentioned we do have a great career blog where we share a lot of insights. We have a YouTube channel. We have regular events. You can always comment on whatever we post, and we'll try to, you know, get back to that. And we have a great career workshop that's coming up soon, where my colleague Christoph is going to basically teach you how to write applications or how to optimize your profile. So if you feel that, you know, you still have a lot of open questions, I think this could be a good opportunity for you. But one last topic, Sandra. Salary is always a big issue, and I know we cannot cover the whole thing right now, but people often struggle with that. Like, do you think it's better to give a salary range or a very precise number when you mention salary expectations? But because it's also often a must, right? When you like send in your application, companies want that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, very, very tricky topic in Germany, especially. People, first off, don't like to talk about money very, very well. What I would suggest is that you, well, I would actually ask, what's the budget for this position? And then it would be helpful to get in a range. And I would just say, I'm lying in this budget, but I wouldn't say where I am probably, you know.
Yeah.
That leaves you space. This is quite new. People would in the past be more specific and say this and this and that. And the other thing is talking about what's important to you in terms of perks and benefits, right? So many companies have the chance to not maybe exactly give you the salary you're imagining, but do a lot through the perks and benefits. And especially in Germany, where you have a very good health system, which is already covering everything kind of, this is already included. So this is not something that you have to be mindful of in contrast to other countries, for example. where you have to pay extra and where this is a benefit.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you already have it, just mention it and say, well, I am in this range, but then I also have this and these perks, which are at this and this value.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, and then I also someone is suggesting that okay, you can also maybe accept a lower pay, but then pay me to commute or other topics. So there can also be other benefits, right? That can be negotiated.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Sandra. I think this was super insightful. I mean, we always have a lot of questions in the chat, but I think today's session has been particularly active, which I think shows that hopefully this was also helpful for our participants. I'm really, really thankful for all of you, to all of you for taking the time and for dialing in and staying with us. We will publish a recording of this event on our YouTube channel. If you know, there was a lot of input so far, so if you missed out on something, you can check it out and check out Sandra's blog. And maybe just some final words from you, Sandra, to sum it up. What's your recommendation? What's the kind of message you would like to give international candidates that are applying for jobs right now?
Well, present yourself as the expert in your position, and underlie this with certain keywords, projects, even awards if you want them, but really show that you have a certain expertise, and it's super worth you importing you from wherever in the world to Germany to add value, and that you're the missing puzzle piece. And you can do so with those keywords. I can't stress it enough. People are much more relying now on active search, actively searching for you. Couple of years ago, people didn't even have this opportunity within an HR department to actively search for the right candidate. So be mindful of your profile, that it has a very good look, that it looks professional, everything is filled out, is very specific, that there's a lot of information in it. And of course, those keywords, put them in, and then also people love data, facts, numbers, right? So that really helps.
Thank you, Sandra. I think that's very motivating. And also from my side, I just wish you all the best. Keep going. And I know it's sometimes not that easy, but it just takes time and yeah, persuasion and just focus. And then I think hopefully at some point you will land a job over here. And yeah, I wish you all the best. Thanks a lot for joining in. Do stay in touch with us. I've again posted Sandra's blog if you want to check it out. And do also follow us on social media. We do have a few additional Career Talk sessions coming up, so stay tuned. We will also have some expats who are already here in Germany and working here, who will share their personal stories and experiences, which I think could also be very helpful for you. So yeah, do stay in touch with us, and all the best. Thank you so much for joining in today. And thank you so much, Sandra, for taking the time. This was really super helpful and interesting.
Cool. All right. It was such a pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.